This is Leisha Holmes, and I'm your host on the Recruiters Recruitment Podcast, brought to you by Hoxo Media. And I am so thrilled to welcome to our channels today a face that is going to be hopefully very familiar to those who are on LinkedIn, who've maybe followed this particular individual for a very long time, as I have. Finally got him on my show. This is Jeremy Snell. Welcome to you today, Jeremy. How are you?
I'm very good. I'm very good. It's a privilege to be here. Thank you very much for the invite.
Well, you're very welcome. So for those of you who don't yet know, you are the founder of Talent Builder, and you've been in the recruitment industry even longer than me, since 1995. So tell us a little bit about what your business does. What is Talent Builder?
So Talent Builder is a closed membership site for independent recruiters who are looking to be able to get the clarity and direction that they need to be able to identify the action steps to take their business further forward.
Okay.
So it combines community, it combines training, and it combines coaching. But more than anything else, it takes away all of the noise that exists in terms of different people's opinion and advice. And it gives you a very clear roadmap to success so that you can identify where you are and what you need to do next to be able to scale your business.
Wow. Gosh, I love it. I love it. It's unique because you're in a quite crowded space, as am I. And I love that you've positioned that with a really succinct, this is what makes us different. And I like the community angle as well. Very good.
Yeah, like it's it's the community. When people join, when they decide to become a member, they join because they want to access content. They want to be able to see the journey that they're going to go on. They end up staying because of the community and because of who they become as part of that community. They don't want to leave that behind. So the community piece is really powerful.
Yeah, no, definitely. It's a very well-timed sort of differentiator, I think, because I think community is what we all lacked during 2020 because of COVID. We were all forced into isolation, and now I think it's how we all as recruiters have to build out our talent pools is creating communities, which I know is a topic that you're very, very passionate about. And the other topic you're very passionate about is something that I hold very dear and actually forms part of my own business name, which is quality, urgency and integrity around ethics. So ethics is something that, we almost take for granted really in recruitment. And I think if you're thinking about our audience, which is all recruiters, right across the globe, we like to say leaders and aspiring leaders. What might differentiate you when you're attracting your talent is your ethics and doing things properly. So first of all, let's define what is actually good ethics. And then how do we know whether a recruiter has good ethics or not?
Ethics is a very subjective topic.
Yes.
Like very few people would say, hi, nice to meet you. I'm Jeremy. I have a slightly broken moral compass. Like everyone believes that their moral compass is the right moral compass. And that's what can sometimes drive this ethical judginess as to who's right and who's wrong, without enough internal reflection to really think about what is my true north. So to me, ethics is all about the guiding principles that you use to be able to navigate every interaction you have with other human beings. And it starts by having clarity on who you are and how you impact on others before you start to even think about any questions you might have about other people's behavior. And there's a fundamental that was shared with me really early in my recruitment career, which was there's no such thing as broken people, just broken strategies. And when you look at people's strategies, they're setting their strategy because they've decided that this is the best path to follow to achieve an outcome. So it's not necessarily the individual themselves who's broken. And we're getting into something quite deep already. I'm sorry about this, but it's like recruiters get judgy really quickly, in my opinion.
Yes.
And I can see why. Frustration can boil up, and it's like, why would that candidate do that? I wouldn't do that if I was them. No. I wouldn't go through an interview process and then take a counter offer. So I'm going to jump onto LinkedIn and I'm going to write an article to anyone who's willing to read it about how stupid it is to take counter offers.
Yeah.
And I send these massive projections out there that is me signaling my virtues without really truly understanding the decision criteria and the compass that the other person had to decide that that was the best strategy.
Yeah.
I'm trying to be agnostic about that I believe that there is a time when you should take a counter offer, and I believe that there is a time when you shouldn't, and only you know when that time is right. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I think you make a really good point actually about recruiters being, you know, and as human beings, we can be quite judgy about what someone chooses to do. But that's where we've maybe taken something personally, or where we haven't actually taken the step back to consider why that person is doing those things. It doesn't mean that they're necessarily unethical. So I think bringing back to what you're talking about with ethics, I think there's the meme that, you know, the jam jar lid, isn't there, with integrity and therefore ethics is doing the right thing even when no one is watching. I think that's where, as recruiters, if it's become quite a transactional process, it doesn't really matter what you're doing. But actually that's where I think conversations like this have to happen, because people need to stop and think about the experience of how they're making somebody feel, and that there is an implication if you don't do the right thing by that person. That person taking the counter offer, let's use this example that you've given, they're taking the counter offer. Maybe that's the right thing for them to do. Maybe 100%. That's what they should do.
And I would quite happily admit I've taken a counter offer when I was a recruiter. I quit.
Please don't switch off, listener. Please carry on listening.
I quit. And then the reason why I quit got removed. So I stayed. Like, the human being that was the reason I quit got removed.
Right.
Like, that was why I was going. And when they found out that's why I was going, well, we will fix that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that wasn't money.
No.
Recruiters think it's all about money, and they only think it's all about money because the candidate tells them they stayed for more money. But the candidate only decides to tell them they stayed for more money because they believe that the moral compass of the recruiter points at money. So they would understand that reason more than I stayed because I'm scared.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Or it feels safer, or sometimes it could be, I've just changed my mind.
Yeah.
You know? So things have changed in my home life, whatever it might be. And I think you're absolutely right. I mean, you mentioned something there about virtue signaling. And I think that's where, certainly over the last few years, certainly, you know, since you, obviously I know you've been in training for about 15, 16 years, but certainly the last few years, LinkedIn has obviously been the voice of recruitment. That's where we all share our testimonials. It's where we put our adverts. It's where we might share something that's opinionated. So how on earth I've got my profile that I'm ethical and that I do the right thing, and I'd like to think that I'm sharing, you know, decent testimonials from clients saying that I am all those things. But how do we see beyond that rhetoric then? How do we know someone really is moral and ethical and has integrity?
There isn't a polygraph test that you can really do that with. All you can do is continuously calibrate. And the two things to calibrate are action and words. If action and words are incongruent with each other, the action speaks far. I know that sounds like such a cheesy thing, doesn't it? The action speaks louder than words, but it's the behavior is driven by the value set of the person.
Yes.
The words is sometimes what they think the world wants to hear.
Yeah, true.
And it's easy to form the words and not necessarily have the behavior.
So it's making sure that if this isn't just a top line, I'm saying these things, it's actually probing, understanding what they've actually done to say that they are those things, and that could be, you know, find if you're a recruiter and you're a potential candidate or client looking at that recruiter particularly, go and look at the evidence rather than just taking those words at face value.
And that's the power of so much of what happens on LinkedIn now. It's the social proof. There is so many opportunities for social proof.
So what do you mean social proof? Do you mean like the number of testimonies that somebody shares?
It's the evidence that other people like you have experienced it, and the outcome was positive, or the experience was good.
Yeah.
And our experience is a product of our expectation.
Yes.
So if you have a certain expectation, you then calibrate the experience you went through compared to expectation. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Like, this says a lot about training in recruitment. When I was on site this week, and I'd spoken to this group of consultants about a certain process to double their response rates on LinkedIn. And they kind of write it down and they kind of look at you like, trainer, like if this really worked, you'd be doing it kind of thing, right? And I went back there this week and the guy said, one of the consultants said to me, Jeremy, I did that thing and it really worked. I got twice as many applications as I've ever had before to anything I've done on LinkedIn. But you could hear it in his voice, the surprise. So his experience was so much better because his expectation was laced with doubt.
Wow.
And that's why I think some candidates, and you'll hear it from trainees, you'll hear it from experienced recruiters. I called this candidate back to tell them they didn't get the job, and the candidate was surprised I did that.
That you actually made the phone call in the first
place. The phone call was made, right?
The expectation was you wouldn't hear from you.
Expectation, I'm not expecting anything because experience has told me in the past, don't hold your breath.
Hold your breath.
So when it did happen, it's like, I'm so glad you called me back. Thank you.
Wow. And actually, if you're thinking about elevating your profile, if the expectation is so low, I often say that about rec to rec. You know, I'm sure it's the same with trainers. I'm sure it's the same with, you know, logistics recruiters, legal recruiters. It doesn't matter what your sector is. The expectation is so low that all you have to do is actually do the decent thing and treat someone like a human being. Treat someone the way you want to be treated. Actually.
Integrity.
Yeah.
Just integrity.
Yeah.
The answer to your question really is it's a calibration thing rather than a litmus test.
Okay.
Are you ethical?
So is this trainable? You're the expert in this. You've been training for a very, very long time and you train hundreds of people. What's trainable about ethics and how do we do this?
The ethics themselves aren't trainable. It's helping people to identify the right strategies that are congruent with their ethics to be able to achieve the outcome.
Okay.
So as you start to show people there are multiple paths that you could follow to achieve a single outcome.
Yep.
It is your moral compass that in part helps you pick which of those paths do I want to follow.
Yep.
And at one end, there could be some real dark side tactics, like the manipulative things. And then up at the other end, there are some very honourable things that can be done that are far more virtuous. And because you've got this whole array of different choices, if your moral compass is dark, you'll go straight to the other end. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I can't stop you from doing that. All I can do is show you that there are other paths that you can follow, which are better for you, and they're better for the candidate, and they're better for the client, so they're better for everybody.
Better for everybody. Don't cut corners. Goodness me. You know, when you're saying that now, I'm just thinking, how many people listening to this now think, I'm on that dark side? And, you know, we're often perceived as manipulative, you know, generally speaking, recruiters, and it's my job and it's the job of people like you and other people that, you know, supply to the recruitment industry. It's our job to educate and to transform how we are perceived. And you can be, and I want to shatter this illusion that to be a successful recruiter, you can be and should be actually highly ethical. It is about doing the right thing for everybody.
And probably the luckiest thing that ever happened to me in recruitment was my first job in recruitment was working within nursing and care.
Oh, okay.
So working in nursing and care, what I did had an impact on people who were being looked after at times of need by people that should care. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
And there were plenty of people I competed against who were chasing the dollar and weren't thinking about the actual outcome.
No.
And because they weren't thinking about the outcome, they were trying to get the timesheet signed.
Yeah.
And this is something that I, particularly in temp, but it's the same to a point in perm. I say to temp and contract recruiters that no one comes to you to hire a temp. They come to you to hire an outcome.
Absolutely.
So if you qualify what are you looking for in a temp and you don't understand the outcome, then you're going to be in trouble. But like when you're in trouble and it's a forklift truck driver compared to when it is a social worker working with children.
Absolutely.
So I learned how to qualify an outcome, I guess, because the sector that I went into, the outcome was like super critical.
Yeah, truly critical.
Life or death.
Yeah.
But then when I went into engineering recruitment, I still stayed really focused on what is the outcome, which then helped me to win more clients because I was aligned with their goals and objectives.
Of course you are.
So I became, in their eyes, ethical.
But actually, what you've just said there, I'm just going to go back on that because, you know, if I don't think there will be any forklift truck drivers listening because that's not really my target audience. But if you are, thank you. But actually, we're dealing with human beings, and actually, the outcome of that human being every single time can be life changing.
Sure, but when you drop a pallet of rubber gloves, you've smashed a pallet of rubber gloves.
Yeah.
When you drop an old person into a bath that's too hot.
No, absolutely.
You've made a mistake.
Yes, it's definitely. We're not comparing the two. It's the what we do in our job. The outcome affects somebody, affects a human being.
100%.
And that's where I think it's, you know, the mindset of creating, you know, an industry around outcome and around what our impact is. It sort of removes all the unethical reasons why you would get somebody to go and take that job. We're not going to push somebody into that job, regardless of whether they're picking up rubber gloves or whether they're putting, you know, like you say, you know, taking somebody through a care process. So it's very interesting, isn't it? So I've got a question that I haven't prepared you for actually. So if somebody wanted to join your community and you knew through hearsay or through your own due diligence that they weren't necessarily an ethical recruitment business or recruiter, would you allow them in?
No.
Oh, okay, good.
Every member, like and it's not that I'm like a doorman and I'm stopping people like a bouncer going, right, frisk for ethics. The people who gravitate towards it are in the main ethical, right?
Yes, yeah.
Because that's why it's attracting them.
Of course.
Every person, and when I look at things like the community side of it, whether it's the LinkedIn group or it's the WhatsApp group or it's the forum on the membership I call the bar, right? So you can go to the bar and ask questions. But when I look at that, I look at what everyone's doing and just decide, is what they're contributing or asking, is it enhancing other people's membership?
Yeah.
Or is it detracting?
Yeah.
If what they're doing is detracting from other people's membership, then it isn't the type of thing that I think should continue to happen in the membership. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely.
And you may have an opinion, but if it's not enhancing other people's experience, frame it in a way that you can start to show that it could still be a challenging opinion without it being a judgmental opinion.
Definitely. I like it. No, it's been a really interesting discussion because I think it's something that is talked about all the time. And if we think about the landscape now as we embrace a post-COVID world and how we're going to ensure as an industry we're attracting and retaining our top talent, but also the industries that you're all recruiting into, these are the sorts of things that people are going to want to know about. So it's been very useful. Make sure all your links are attached to this episode. And thank you so much for joining us today, and good luck with building your talent builder community.
Thank you very much.
Pleasure. Thanks for joining me today.
Okay.